Well, here's another request that came through email, another one about something I said in a newsletter. In one of your newsletters, you talk about neutrals having color. But when I look at tree trunks, they all seem gray to me. Will you explain what you mean by neutrals having color and how we can learn to see it? Let's go on a little treasure hunt. Well, in all the ways we learn to look at color, it's always better to compare rather than just try to identify a single thing. So, for example, if you're looking at a tree trunk, compare what you see in terms of color or hue, or let's just start with temperature. Compare the temperature of the tree trunk with the area around it. Now, by that I mean, let's put the color wheel up and explain what you're going to be looking for. If the area that you're looking at, or the tree trunk you're looking at, is lit by a cool light, which is usually overcast, could be other conditions, and you compare, you'll be searching for something in this range right here in terms of temperature. If you're looking at a tree trunk in warmer light, such as direct sunlight, you're probably going to find the hue that I'm talking about on this side of the color wheel. Now, just to do a little bit of demonstration and show you what I'm talking about. One thing that helps is to, first of all, just look for temperature rather than hue. Now, all the cool hues have some blue in them. We see them more cool when they are in a warmer surrounding. So it's always a comparison. But if you look at one of those neutrals, let me just take this one for example. If you compare this with the surroundings, you can see it feels warmer. Or if you compare this one with this one, can you see this as warmer than that? Well, if you feel it either warm or cool, it has hue in it. Now, I want to do just a little bit of a demonstration here and show you what I'm talking about. So let's start with this here, this one, and let's see if we can get what we're doing right there. So now we know to get neutral, to be able to mix neutral, works best when you use two complements. And be sure they're complements. And then be sure that the two that you're mixing together are the same value. If they're not, change the darker one and make it a lighter value, or change the lighter one and make it a darker value. But in order to see neutrals, in order to mix neutrals, we must control the values of the two colors that we're mixing together, two complements. We must have them in that same value range, or it's going to skew to a darker value or a lighter value than you're really going for. So let's see, if I start right here and I'm going for this hue, this color, I'm going to call it, and I see the hue in that, I see it very, very neutral. So that tells me right to start off with that I'm going to be looking for it to be cooler. So I've already got blue and the complement of blue, which is orange. Now this is a slightly desaturated orange, it's leaning a little bit more towards a red orange, but they will desaturate each other. So let's see, is that middle value? It seems to be more middle to light value. Well, let's start right here. And I've got that in a middle value, and I'm going to put a little bit of that light in it. And I'm going to mix that. I'm going to try, first of all, for the value. And I'll just hold this right here, and that seems to be, maybe making that just a little bit lighter. It's in the value range. Now, let's get that neutral. So I'll do that by coming over here and mixing these colors with it. And then I'll mix that back and forth until I get it neutral. That seems relatively neutral. Let's see. Relatively neutral. Now let's see. compare it to here, and it feels pretty neutral. So if I put it right here, now it just feels like gray. But let's do something else now. Let's go and let's use a mixture of the complement, and let's put the complement around that on this side and this side. And do you see now how that looks bluer? So the colors in their environment, comparing those colors together will help you decide whether that is on the cool side of neutral or on the warm side. Now, to get that into a value of where you're going to be doing a represent. Oh, first of all, let's do this one. So let's go here. Let's see, that's warmer, so I'll just make that a warmer neutral. And what I'll do there is just change the proportions and pull more of the warmer color into it. So by doing that, let's get that about like that. Now pull it down here. And you see there by itself, it just feels pretty neutral, doesn't it? And you might even, if I didn't have these two on the side of that, you might even think those were pretty much the same. But you can see, this feels cooler and this feels warmer. Now we can make that feel even warmer. And by putting a cooler color on either side of it. We'll do that at pretty much the same value. We're not going to have it very much saturated. Just it's still somewhat, that blue is somewhat desaturated. Now do you see how this feels warmer than these do? And now you can see when we compare these two together, this feels warm and this feels cool. Let's go to the next step here, and I'll show you how you can use warm and cool together and still have the whole tree leaning towards warm or cool. And I'll just do a very brief demonstration here using this sort of as my guide of what we might see as a portion of a tree trunk or a tree trunk. So I'm going to start with the dark over here, and I'm going to start with a dark neutral. So I'll mix my darks. They're the same value. And so I'll mix those. I've got darks on one side of the brush and the lights on the other. I hope that won't interfere. And let's see where. All right, that's sort of on the cool side. So let's just say, all right, so we might come down something like that. And let's now lean that a little bit more towards the warm and sort of add a little bit of that warmth into it. And you can't really see that, but you get the feeling of that later. Now I'm going to begin to, you see that when we're looking at something that is rounded, and the light, especially if we have a direct light source, light's going to be lighter in some areas, and it's going to gradually get darker as this turns away from the light source, as we see it's happening right there. So let's just gradually get that lighter now. You see what I described to myself there? Gradually gets lighter. I observe. It's all observation. I observe this gradually getting lighter. It tells me I need to make my colors get gradually lighter. So we'll get gradually lighter, and we'll just come very, very gradually. I'm just going to use these little quick marks here. Come very, very gradually into this, and let me just kind of blend that into this, and let it just sort of blend in. See, that helps to also create that texture that we're seeing there. Then we're going to keep moving. Going to move towards middle value now. I'm going to stay in that that temperature range. Let's get that just a little bit cooler right there. And let's see what we get there. There we go. Let's get that. Let's get it just a little warmer. Yeah, warm and cool. There we go, like this. All right, so we move that around and just let that kind of gradate. It's just moving around there. Then we'll move on the lighter side now. Now I'm going to gradate that towards a warmer. See, I've got a little bit cooler over here, and now I'm going to gradate that towards a little bit warmer. Now, this goes a little bit beyond what the request was. The request was, how can we see that? Well, what you can do, it's what you look for. I mean, you don't try to see color in it, but you look at it and you ask yourself, is it more cool or is it more warm? Is this cooler or warmer than what's surrounding it? And that's where your launching pad will be. I got that a little bit too warm, so I'll cool it with a cooler color and keep going down like that and get that gradually blended. Because it's a textured image, we don't have to get it thoroughly blended. It's still going to show us a gradation as we're moving around. And then let's go on the other side here. I'm going to pick up some white now because I need it to be a little bit lighter than the lights I've got mixed here. Lights I've got mixed here is where we fall into about a half tone, 2 to 3. And I'm going to get that just a little bit lighter. I'm going to need to get that just a little bit lighter and let that gradate in. So keep that relatively warm as there we go, as we're moving down, and then let it gradate. So just gradate by mixing, gradate by blending, I should say. When we observe a characteristic, then we ask ourselves, what brush technique do we need to show that characteristic? And I'm working with oils, so this is the brush technique that we use in oils, one of them. If we were working in acrylic, we use that same technique. If you're working in gouache, you can use the same technique. If you're working in watercolor, it works just a little bit differently. But I won't go into that right here because I don't have watercolor available at the moment. Now, what's happening over here is getting a little bit darker on that side. So what we'll do is observe those edges that we're looking at here. And we'll get that just a little bit darker as it goes on that side. And I'll pull the color out of the brush and blend those together. Not thoroughly. Don't need to thoroughly blend it together. Just sort of blend this together. And maybe we might take it just a little bit darker. Just emphasize that side just a little bit. But that side is not as dark as the light must be about right in here because the darker values are appearing in here. All right, so let's see here. Now we get those textures in there. Let's do now just a little bit more warming. I'm going to control the temperature just a little bit here. And I think an exercise like this will make it more real to you how to observe it. Because when we're painting and the way we use color, it trains our eyes to see color more acutely. So in the act of painting, we're also learning how to observe and how to register color. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to make that just a little bit darker. And what I'm going to do here is come in here and make it just a little bit darker. Just a tad darker. Not thoroughly. Just keep it warm. So I'm developing, I'm working between warm and cool, and I'm working in that value range. So the warm and cool is the hue. The hues of blue and orange, we'll just call it that. The hues of blue and orange are working together and working back and forth, and I'm working, the value is going this way. So the hue is the mixture of these, the saturation is the mixture of these, and the value is going both directions. All right, now what did I say? Oh yeah. All right, so now I can begin to make some sort of indications with the warmer, get just a little bit warmer, make those indications with the warmer of where we might see textures, those textures. Now textures, camera is going to show these textures. The dark part of the texture is darker than you actually see them if you're there. That's just the way the cameras will overexpose lights and the overexposed darks too. By overexposing the lights, the darks get overexposed. So, but what we're actually looking for, textures are just tiny values contrast. And so what we look for is how much darker does it need to go. So if I were to make what I'm doing here as dark as that, it wouldn't look right. So I have to keep that value relatively close in the light areas, just make those textures, the little darks that indicate the textures, make those just a little darker. Now I'm going to go for the cool and keep it the same value, and just put some little textures in there. Now by alternating warm and cool, but letting more warm be visible than cool, we create a more lively version of what we're looking at. And then if you begin to look at those warm and cool grays that you see, you can actually detect visually, especially now the camera doesn't catch it, But in my own woods, I go out and study the trunks of trees and the colors and the values and textures of trunks and trees. I can actually detect that it's not all the same temperature. It's that more of it feels either warm or cool in this case than it does of the other temperature. So we've got both warm and cool in here, but there's more warm than we're seeing here. We've got both warm and cool, and this one you can almost see if you look close enough there, but there's more cool than warm. So if you think about it like that, now as I'm moving over here, I think what I'd like to do is to go a little bit darker over here and just get some cool now, little cool marks going in here like this. There we go. Now you see that way we begin to feel something of those textures. I might have overstated that just a bit. So let's get that. I'll get that temperature change just a hair to be a little bit less saturated, which is what it is. When saturation, when we're desaturating color, which means when we're making grays, what we're doing is we're taking hue out. So when I've got blue here, it has a lot of hue blue in it. But once I start adding orange into it, the orange neutralizes some of that blue. It means it takes it out so that it makes less blue visible. And then if you were to go into a saturation scale, you would start out with the blue and you get it less visible, less visible, less visible until it's completely neutral. And then if you continue to add the complement to it, then it begins to take the complement's color out. In this case, it would take red out. All right, so I'm going to just a little bit more to that, and right up in here, I'm just going a little bit cooler. Now, can you see when I do that cool and warm, you see how it emphasizes? I put those little cool marks in there. See how it emphasizes the warm, just like we've done here? And sometimes we can make it both cooler and darker. So see now, if I overdo that, if I get the same amount of warm and cool, then the whole thing just looks gray. But if I keep the perception, I keep the perception of warm in there, then it will have more life in it and also feel cooler or warmer, whatever I decide I want it to be, or whatever I'm interpreting it to be. I want this whole thing to interpret as being more warm. So I'm going to put a few cool marks over here, about in that same value range. Now I'm going to do a few warm accents, and then you will, I hope, you see I've almost got it too equal now. Almost got enough blue in there that we're beginning to see them feel it as more blue in some areas. So what I'll do there is go there in the middle value range and warm up, get a warmer version of that neutral. I'm just going to sit that right on top of some of that cool. I'm not going to take it out completely. Just sit a little bit of that warm on top of the cool, and it helps to get that. Let's get just a little bit more a gradation of light in there. And so if we've got it here, okay, we've got just a little bit more gradation of light, put a little bit more light in here, and have it going in this direction. Look, see now it's getting that cool, that warm feeling back. It wouldn't hurt to throw just a little bit of middle value in this area right over here as it's going into shadow. As it's leaving, this is leaving the light source, turning away from the light source and going into shadow. Now, let's see, do a little bit more. I want to get almost completely neutral, but leaning towards warm right here in this value area, right there. And let's see what we can do. Add just a little bit of that right in here, and right in here. Just looking at what's going on right there. Maybe a little bit right there. It wouldn't hurt a little bit of that to pop out in the dark part. Maybe to have a little bit of the dark popping out in the middle value part. And so a little bit more emphasis on the light, and so you see what I've done there. I observe this as warm, and now I'm doing a study where I'm studying how to make that translate as warm and still keep it alive by using both warm and cool within. So we're a little bit out of the range of the question, but I don't think it will hurt at all. So you might, even if you just go on Pixabay and borrow one of all their photos are uncopyrighted. They're available to study without permission, and so just go to Pixabay and search for tree trunks, and then I think you find some really good ones where you can do this exercise to help you to understand by doing what both cool and warm do, and how we can create the perception of something as warmer. Of course, when I put that in an environment, if I put it in a warmer environment, it's going to look cooler. If I put it in a cooler environment, it's going to look warmer. But just doing these little individual studies where you're not trying to put it in an environment will help you a whole lot understand, get the comprehension of the difference between warm and cool and what they can do to each other. Be sure and view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianeMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.